First and foremost, all praises are due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of Great Millstone for teaching us the truth. Salutations to the brothers around the four corners of the earth who are teaching this word in truth and sincerity. And shalom to the hopeful elect, a few men, women, and children that believe in this word. This is your brother Kawat Zalba coming at you again with another lesson. This one is entitled, We Are on the Cusp of Sedition Amongst Men. And if you haven't already heard, there are over, 1,000 protests known as the hands-off protests going on around the country. They've already, begun that this morning, I guess, and it's going on throughout the whole day, known as the 1,000 hands-off protest, anti-Trump protest. So the article here I have from Google News that I found says more than 1,000 hands-off anti-Trump protests begin across the U.S. That's why I titled this lesson, We Are on the Cusp of Sedition Amongst Men. And I'll go into some scripts, Second Esdras, chapter 15. All this has been spoken about, written about in the Bible. And we've been saying that Jacob's trouble, we're on the cusp of that. And within Jacob's trouble, you're going to have sedition amongst men, people going against the government, because they are realizing that Donald Trump, a lot of you Edomites, also some of you ninjas that voted for him, you Latinos, so-called ninjas and Latinos, you really are Hebrew Israelites, a majority of you, you are realizing that Donald Trump did not have your best interests in mind. Donald Trump was put into office by the elites of the Edomites, the bankers, who run the world. So these protests are actually part of their big design. They call it what? Controlled opposition. You create two sides in order to create a problem. You have a reaction, and the solution is what? Ultimately, Jacob's trouble. Within that, you're going to have the CHIP, the MOTB spoken of in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16. And then you're going to have, of course, World War III. And those of us who are part of the hopeful elect, we hope that we are part of the elect. We're waiting for the day of the Lord when Yahushua comes back down in the big, gigantic spaceship. And also the nuclear weapons will destroy Babylon, America, coming from Russia and the other nations. But we hope, pursuant to Isaiah 26 and 20, that we will be beamed up into the chambers of the spaceship and watch Babylon, America burn. So let's read a little bit of this article and we'll get a couple scripts. So it says here, let's read the article again. More than 1,000 hands-off anti-Trump protests begin across the U.S. It says here, people across the U.S. took to the streets on Saturday to oppose what left-leaning organizations called Donald Trump's authoritarian overreach and billionaire-backed agenda. So you see the controlled opposition being created, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, spoken of in Revelation 13 in verse 11, all right? The dragon, which had two horns like a lamb, but spake as a dragon. So it doesn't matter who you voted for, whether you're Democrat or Republican, they're all on the same team. They're all being controlled by the elites of the Edomites, the international bankers that run the world, that put the puppet leaders in office. Let's continue. Organizers were expecting more than 500,000 people to demonstrate in Washington, D.C., Florida, and elsewhere. At Washington's National Mall, demonstrators from as far afield as New Hampshire and Pennsylvania gathered in the shadow of the George Washington Memorial Monument in advance of the anti-Trump rally here. All right? Let's go down here a little bit more. Some protesters said they hoped the event, the first mass demonstration in Washington, D.C. since Trump took office, would act as an example to inspire others to register opposition. You see? Setting up for sedition amongst men. The aim is to get people to rise up, said Diane Colifroff, 63, who traveled from New Hampshire with 100 fellow members of the New Hampshire Forward, a civic society organization. Many people are scared to protest against Trump because he has reacted aggressively and violently to those who have stood up. The goal of this protest is to let the rest of Americans who aren't participating see that we are standing up, and hopefully when they see our strength, that will give them the courage to also stand up. See, so those of us who know what's going on, the hope for elect, we know to just what? Just stand back and eat our popcorn, okay? Get your popcorn ready and watch the show. Don't get involved, because this is part of the scriptures. This is part of prophecy, and we are very, very excited to see everything going on. And like I said, this has been pre-planned by the elites to bring America down. That's why Donald Trump was put into office as the perfect foil to usher in Jacob's trouble. And like I said, within that, the MOTB, and ultimately, you're going to have World War III. Donald Trump has been, slashing funds from government agencies, firing people. He also desires to cut funding for Section 8, food stamps, HUD, whatever it may be, which is going to put the American financial system into collapse. So that's why he's in here. He also has imposed tariffs, which China has reacted back with their own tariffs against the United States. The stock market is plummeting as investors are losing faith in America. So everything has been pre-planned. Let's get a couple scripts and we'll finish up. So we have here Second Esdras. Let's get that. Second Esdras, chapter 15 and verse 14. And it reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, in swords in their hands." So that's being set up. So within Jacob's trouble, you're going to have race riots, civil war, Edomites against Edomites, Edomites against us, the Hebrew Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans here in Babylon, America. All this is going to be going on. Famine of food, the collapse of the economy, people dying like dung on the streets. Let's read verse 16. "For there shall be sedition amongst men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Let's get that word sedition real quick. I want to get that word sedition. The hope for elect, we understand that. So let's go to this. Let's read this again. Let's go back here. Let's read this. Second Esdras, chapter 15, verse 16 again. "For there shall be sedition amongst men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings," okay, because Donald J. Trump is acting like he's a king. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, which leads to rioting. In the course of their action shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able to. So that's going to bring on Jacob's trouble, the chaos, the calamity. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Let's read verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So famine is coming. When China puts those tariffs into effect, which they have, it's going to bring food prices up. You're going to have a domino effect. People losing jobs. All of this is going to create a domino effect, bringing in Jacob's trouble. Let's read verse 20. Behold, saith Yahweh, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising of the sun, from the south, from the east, in Libanus, to turn themselves one against another and repay the things that they have done to them. That's talked about in what? Joel chapter 3, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, which is going to be what? World War III. So everything has been pre-planned really by Yahweh. He's going to bring all these world powers into effect. You're going to have what? Iran with Russia and their allies, China. You see Turkey against Babylon, America and their allies, NATO, the European Union, are going to be gathered up in one place. So this is the Lord's ultimate plan, okay, to destroy them. So we're very excited, those of us who are part of the hopeful elect, because we know that this will eventually lead to what? To Yahushua coming back, cracking those clouds, setting up his kingdom. And those of us who are part of the hopeful elect, we hope to be joint heirs with Yahushua in the kingdom. So on that note, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba Hashem, Yahushua, Ba Hashem Rakakwadash. I hope this lesson was edifying to you. Shalom.